Habits of Heroes is what I'm working on to be my second book. Where it came from is part of what I do in the performance world is I have a Belgian Malinois dog, which is it's from the same pipeline of the dogs that they're using the SEAL teams. And I got this dog for protection for my family, and also I'm always been really interested in dog training. And when I started training the dog, what was very unique and what was very different, how training changed, is it used to be I would describe dog training as you would stop the dog from doing what it wanted to do and force it to do what you wanted it to do. And now dog training, because of something called operant conditioning and the behavior science that a group of dog trainers have just taken off with, you're basically changing what the dog desires to do, which is a very unique perspective when you think about human beings. Now, the reason I bring all that up is I was studying a book on this very subject, and they were talking about how operant conditioning, behavior change, how they use it with autistic kids and gymnasts and professional athletes. It's starting to get it's getting more applied into the human world, but they're still using a ton of animal examples. And one of the examples that they used in the book is they described this bear. I forget where the bear. It was a bear in the zoo. It was a polar bear, and there was an article somewhere that they wrote called "The Bipolar Bear." And what it was is they were describing, bears and carnivores specifically, that their existence or what they were bred for was to roam large chunks of land hunting for food, and that was like 50,000 acres or just huge, massive amounts. And then when you put them in a zoo, you bring it down to like this 5 or 10 yard structure. And if you ever notice when you go to a zoo, you'll see these animals pacing back and forth. And what they explained in the book was like this was a disorder. Like this bear was suffering from anxiety and internal pain. I think they've coined the term as zoochosis. But basically what they figured out is a lot of the animals in zoos are suffering. And if you can imagine, if you're doing this 50,000 acre, whatever the size is, every day, and you had all this land to roam and you're hunting and basically living out the purpose of which you were bred for, life is good. But when you're stuck in the zoo, the bear would just keep going because it doesn't stop, and it'll kind of burn itself out and pick up all these, what they would describe as self-mutilating behaviors, all the things that the bear would basically hurt himself. And as soon as I heard this, I was listening to an audiobook, and tears hit my eyes because I realized they were describing me. The things that I do when I go from, I was bred to hunt and fight, and which most of us are, right? We're only a few generations away from being out there hunting for our food, right? That's what we were bred for. That's what a lot of us were meant to do. And you stick us in an office or a cubicle and we start pacing back and forth. The anxiety turns up, and then we start picking up habits that are not necessarily good for us. And we have sports and basketball and football, and there's things we can do, but that's not hunting, that's not fighting. But it is why we love sports, right? Because we're kind of in that hunter, we're active in a way. But we'll pick up these horrible habits, right? And you see it a lot in business. Guys start drinking too, and I'm talking about me as much as I'm talking about anybody else, right? You drink too much, you get angry, you yell at your wife, your kids, you're grumpy. Some people end up abusing prescription drugs and things like that, because what they're doing is they're trying to cope with being pulled from the environment of which they're meant to be in. So the idea behind Habits of Heroes is, for the most part, our world, our culture has changed from that. We need, it's a knowledge-based economy. We're supposed to be reading and thinking and on our computers, inventing and designing new offers. And that means we're inside a whole bunch. So our coping mechanisms as a society, as a culture, are not so great. But these heroes, SWAT team, firefighters, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets, pararescue men. I mean, I'm leaving some groups out, but there are still these groups of heroes in our life who haven't been transitioned into, this kind of sit in an office culture. So their habits are still intact with what they were bred or born to do. So they serve, as usual, these guys serve as guys and girls, right? Male and females are in these hero roles, and they serve as great examples to all of us on the things we can be doing to supplement our natural state of being. So the idea behind Habits of Heroes is to interview and talk with these guys and girls and find out how they're living a good life. How do they care for their adventure? How do they care for that hunter inside of them? What do they do with their families? What do they do on their personal time? How do they have that happy, healthy life? And what can we, the rest of us who aren't in those fields anymore, what can we learn from them? Because they're kind of like, it's like learning the ancient warrior secrets, because the culture kind of moved on, but these pods of people, not that they didn't move on, but they're still holding these warrior spirits, these warriors' habits, these things that we can learn from. So Habits of Heroes is all about recognizing the things we do to kind of cope that aren't necessarily positive and a lot of times straight damaging, and learn from the guys and girls who are living a good, healthy lifestyle because of their job, because it mandates that they do, so that we can be happy and healthy ourselves.